Show me the crypto. Show me the crypto. Show me the crypto.
In a world on the brink of disruption, two men will bring you clarity by interviewing some of the most intelligent and influential names in the blockchain world. Welcome to Show Me the Crypto with your hosts, Wade Patterson and Ulf Lonergan.
Well, hi there and welcome to Show Me the Crypto. My name is Wade Patterson.
And I'm Ulf Lonergan.
We're a couple of friends from Canada who love learning about cryptocurrencies and blockchain technology, and we're happy you're along for the ride. Whether you're a crypto virgin or you know your way around the block, we hope our interviews with some of the most intelligent and influential people in the space help deliver you with value. And on this episode, we're joined by Hudson Jameson, co-founder of Ethereum Cat Herders. Hudson is about as OG as it gets when it comes to the crypto space. Since discovering Bitcoin in 2011, Hudson has played an active role in various online communities in support of decentralized technology, including Ethereum and ZCash. From 2016 until April of this year, he worked with the Ethereum Foundation, and he is currently a committee member of ZCash Open Major Grants. In his spare time, Hudson enjoys TV shows targeted at millennials, Overwatch, and cookies and cream flavored ice cream. Hudson, welcome to Show Me the Crypto.
Thank you. You got me exactly right there. It's almost like it was read verbatim from my personal website or something.
That's exactly where I pulled it. That's the good way that you know it's going to be accurate information anyways. So let's start with the most important question then. What is your favorite TV show targeted at millennials?
Probably Bob's Burgers.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Classic. Yep. Love it. Okay, so there's a lot of different places we can go with this conversation, but let's start right at the beginning, 2011, and dive a little deeper into your discovery of Bitcoin. So at that point in time, how did you come to learn about Bitcoin, and what was your initial impression?
Sure. So I already... at this point, it's been so many years, I forgot where I first read the word Bitcoin, but I do remember browsing some kind of Reddit or online forums. That was going to be in 2011, the summer after my freshman year of college. And I read about Bitcoin somewhere, and I was going through a heavy libertarian phase, if I recall. And so it really appealed to me that all the, kind of political implications of a decentralized, censorship-resistant currency that isn't controlled by a government. So that heavily appealed to me. It also was really cool. I was in computer science I was in college for computer science. So the technology aspects of it as well was really interesting. So I had a few computers in my crappy little room that I was renting out of someone's house during college, and I ran CPU miners to mine Bitcoin, and I mined about half a Bitcoin before it got way too hot in there. Just having the computers on all the time was too hot. But so from there, I went through college and just continued to investigate Bitcoin more. I wasn't really a day trader or anything. I was more interested in some of the stuff around mining and about kind of just the philosophy of it and stuff like that, just following the news, the Mt. Gox stuff, the major hacks. I luckily didn't have any coins in the first or second Mt. Gox hack. I was lucky for that.
Sneaked by that one.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Well, and moving a little forward in time, it's my understanding that you first caught wind of Ethereum around 2015. What was interesting about the concept of Ethereum, and what were you actually maybe doing in this space up until that time, aside from, or was it kind of everything you just explained, just doing a little bit of mining and that sort of thing?
So throughout college, I did some experiments for a few professors around cryptocurrency, ones that were interested in it. Nothing huge, just some mining stuff with GPUs and then ASICs. And then around 2015, I discovered the Ethereum white paper. And at that time that I was reading that, I was pretty active in the DarkCoin community that is now called Dash. I was in the DarkCoin community from really the early days when they were still kind of figuring out what they wanted to do and how they wanted to define themselves. I kind of left that community when they renamed themselves to Dash. And from there, just went into kind of general blockchain work and following Ethereum. But yeah, I'm trying to think now. I might have actually, when did I read the white paper? Yeah, it was one of those things where I read the white paper, heard about the crowd sale, and participated in the crowd sale. And from there, just kind of waited to see what would happen. I joined a bank after college, USAA, which is really a bank and insurance company. And I worked in their blockchain division and their innovation lab. So this was really early for enterprises.
Yeah, that's super early.
And Ethereum was the thing that I would use in internal company hackathons. So I would use like proof of concept 7 and like old school stuff like Aleph 0. And like for the few people who are listening to this who might remember how crappy that software was, it actually won me and my friends some hackathons. And it was just really cool. It clicked to me. The biggest thing was I've always really been interested for blockchain and these censorship resistant elements, the sending information and money and other things to people and countries that might be like stifled by dictatorships or by stuff like that. So that was kind of what I was wanting Bitcoin to be. But then I feel like Bitcoin kind of lost its way in certain ways where it's not like something where I can just send $5 to someone. Now it's like digital gold and digital storage. And I talk to a lot of people who feel like that's not what they signed up for way back when. It's definitely not what I signed up for. So this Ethereum was really refreshing. It had a really good vibe, and having programs on the blockchain was just groundbreaking. I had read about Nick Szabo's stuff in the 90s, or not during the 90s. I was a child, but I read about his work that he had written in the 90s on smart contracts and stuff. And it was just really appealing to me. I think did some patents while I was at USAA. I need to look up my name, but some stuff came out of that where I kind of had influence from some of Nick Szabo's early stuff to make some banking patents around smart contracts.
And you mentioned there that just kind of taking a little bit of step back, but that you left sort of your involvement or whatever participation you did have with DarkCoin once it changed over to Dash. Why was it that you decided that was no longer interesting for you?
It was a couple of things. The main stuff is that it was going in a more corporate direction. It felt less grassroots after a bit. And maybe it was just me being naive, thinking that you could always have that kind of small, close-knit community connection. Because even Ethereum's growing out of that slowly. Yeah, it was kind of controversial, the name change. People felt like they weren't being heard. There were certain community members that were longtime community members that were my friends who left. So it was just kind of a combination of stuff where it just didn't appeal to me anymore. And so I sold some of my master nodes for a down payment on my house. And I moved and got a job and just kind of put myself into my work there.
So then you discover Ethereum, you read the white paper, 2015-ish, and then the next year, 2016, you joined the Ethereum Foundation. So how did all of that come about, and what specifically were you doing with the Ethereum Foundation?
Sure. So yeah, I read the white paper. I was researching it at USAA, and I started becoming involved in the community outside of any enterprise blockchain stuff. So I joined Reddit. I would write a lot in there, got my name out, joined Twitter, and got more active on there, kind of talking to the developers and the community members. I led I was the co-lead on documentation writing for the Homestead documentation, which was like one of the earlier hard forks of Ethereum. And that got me kind of more renowned because I was managing a lot of people, like 20 volunteers at least, who were contributing to this documentation. And we were using, I think we were even using a repo in Ethereum. So around the end of 2015, while I was at the bank, I heard about DevCon 1 in London. And I was like, oh my God, I have to go. Like, this is going to be a life-changing event. I could just feel it. Like, I could feel, these people I had spent hours and hours on Gitter, doing stuff for, and communicating with, were going to be there. So I had just gotten married, gotten a house, was new at a job. So I asked my dad to borrow some money so I could get an international flight to London, because I didn't have a ton of money at the time. And he was like, yeah, sure, this sounds like something you really want to do. So I stayed at a cheap hostel in London. I got to DevCon day one, saw that they were severely understaffed for volunteers. So I just said, hey, how can I help? And I jumped behind the table and I started giving out badges. I was selling T-shirts. I eventually became the timekeeper for Vitalik, and helped make his schedule for the day. Just kind of ran around, did whatever, worked with the AV team, with the venue. It was really just crazy how much that you could get done if you got there a little bit early and just asked what needed to happen. So basically, I volunteered there. It was an amazing time. I met some really cool people who were really passionate about Ethereum and were talking about use cases that were ahead of its time. After I left, I gave a feedback email to the executive director of the Ethereum Foundation at the time, Ming Chan. And I basically said, hey, here's what went wrong and right, and this was a great conference, and thank you. And they kept in touch with me over Skype and offered me a job. They said I did really good work. They appreciated that, and they needed more people, kind of more in an operations role and helping with DevCon for the next DevCon. So I worked at the Ethereum Foundation doing DevOps work and DevCon work at first. From then on, I think I went through like 5 or 6 other roles at the Ethereum Foundation, because it was kind of scrappy and, just a nonprofit. So you do a bunch of different things, but mostly throughout I did DevCon and DevOps the first few years.
Can you explain for our audience who's maybe not so familiar, like what is the purpose of the Ethereum Foundation?
Sure. So whenever Ethereum first did its crowd sale, which was basically a token sale of the network, they had a portion of those tokens go to the Ethereum Foundation, which is a nonprofit, and that group, the Ethereum Foundation, was the first group of developers to build the first iterations of Ethereum. Before there was consensus and before there was other major, Ethereum-related organizations, there was just about 10 to 20 developers in a room coding the basic bare bones of Ethereum and Solidity. So its purpose now is to be not a driving force in the ecosystem in a way where it really pushes its weight around and tries to make decisions. In fact, it actually stays neutral on a ton of different decisions. But what it does do is it funds grants and other types of support for people in the ecosystem. They fund some of the most popular Ethereum clients, and they also house the core research team behind ETH 2.0.
And then this year in April, if I'm not mistaken, you left Ethereum Foundation.
Yes.
So what was the reason behind that?
So I had been at the Ethereum Foundation for nearly 5 years. It was probably a little less than 5 years. And that's like an eternity in crypto or in crypto time, at least from talking to other people. They're like, oh, you've been there how long? And I felt like I had been kind of not been doing as well at some of the stuff I was doing well at before, including stuff with the core developer meetings that I'd been running every 2 weeks, stuff with EIP editing, other things like that. So I, with the help of a few people at the EF, recruited Tim Byko to be a part of the Ethereum Foundation and take over my role as a core developer liaison and a core developer call coordinator and just basically hard fork coordinator. And he's been doing an excellent job. He's a really, really awesome person and doing amazing work. Also, Trent came in to take up some of the stuff I was doing with community outreach, Trent Van Epps. And to make a long story short, I think that it was just, I had just been there a while and I wanted something new. My mental health also wasn't great at the time. So like over the past year, so I could tell that I didn't want to be a part of an organization where I was struggling that badly personally and not contributing that much to something that was as cool as the Ethereum Foundation. So that was, I mean, there's kind of a litany of reasons, but for the most part, I think it was just time for a change.
Since you brought up mental health, that is something I know that you've been fairly open about on Twitter and that kind of thing. Do you mind just maybe, while we're on the topic, digging a little bit deeper into that and why you think it's important to, that this is something that we talk about and that we're open about?
Sure. So yeah, I have had a history of mental health issues, primarily stuff around depression and anxiety, but like clinically, I have been diagnosed with bipolar type 2 and ADHD and a few other things, some like personality disorders, like OCPD. So what's important about this for the community is that there shouldn't be a stigma around it. The burnout is real and it affects mental health. And there's a ton of burnout in crypto where people just kind of push through and it's not healthy. Me personally, I got burnt out after a number of years doing a ton of stuff in Ethereum and spending all my time doing it. So I feel like there just needs to be more like conversations, maybe some more stuff within jobs about mental health leave and just open conversations around it. I also just came back from a 3-week stay at a really nice mental hospital that I checked myself into about a month ago called Menninger Clinic in Houston, Texas. Really great place, really pricey. So yeah, that's kind of the downside, but they do really good care there. I got a better diagnosis. I got a new meds. I'm on lithium now, which is neat because it's a periodic table of elements element. And they're just like, I'm just eating that. So, yeah, so basically it was a really interesting time. I learned a lot about different people's mental health because they had people all the way from just like kind of anxious and burnouts from work all the way to paranoid schizophrenic and people who are under active psychosis and stuff like that. But I made a lot of friends. I have a funny story from there. I went there and I wore a shirt from EY blockchain conference and it said hodl Bitcoin or hodl down or something on my arm. So I was in there and I step in and I'm really nervous because I don't know if it's going to be a weird place or not. And I sit down and someone's like, "Hey, does that say hodl on your shirt?" I was like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Are you Hudson?" It's like, "Yeah." So for the second time in my entire life, I got recognized like as a crypto person while I'm in a mental hospital. And the guy was like really nice and introduced me to everyone and all the things. And he was like a Bitcoin miner or a Bitcoin and an Ethereum miner, and had like a huge mining rig at his house. And yeah, it was really interesting. He also listened to Bankless and stuff and had some strong opinions about certain things in crypto. And I was like, well, this is nice to have someone I can relate to.
Yeah, that's awesome. Have you found that, being open about mental health and opening up that discussion, specifically with a crypto audience, has there been other individuals who are clearly following you or active in the crypto community that then, have also jumped in that discussion and maybe opened it up for others? Yeah.
There's too many names to name exactly, but I would say that I get dozens of DMs whenever I do a mental health update, just saying, "Hey, this resonated with me," or "Hey, I'm going through some stuff too, and I can't tell anybody." And then there's some people who publicly have said, I read Hudson's thing and then I want to talk about my stuff. There's been, a lot more of that. It's really nice. I don't know. I'm really an open book. People who know me personally know that I'm really open book. And so getting that off my chest, that, the stuff that I care about and putting it on Twitter, stuff that people might find uncomfortable or very unrelated to crypto, like mental health or the fact that I'm bisexual or stuff like that is very important to me because there's like not enough representation for those kind of issues in crypto. And I mean, people are going to be like, "Oh, look at that woke asshole trying to bring all this in when we just want to talk about greedy money." And I'm like, no, we need to talk about it.
Ulf, do you realize our audience has been either watching or listening to this episode for 20 minutes?
20 minutes? No, they should probably subscribe.
Yeah, they should subscribe. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you comment and turn on notifications. And if you're listening to this podcast, especially if you're on Apple Podcasts, leave us a rating and a review.
We're also on Twitter, Instagram, and even TikTok. So go check out the episode description. You can find all that information below. And we have an update on the NFT, don't we?
That's right. We didn't previously mention this, but this NFT for OG supporter is a one of one. There will only be one of this kind ever minted, and we have a few surprises for the person who purchases it. The link is in the episode description.
And back to the episode. Hudson, if you can help our audience who maybe isn't so familiar, there was recently a big event for Ethereum called the London Hardfork. Would you be able to explain a little bit about why the London Hardfork has been getting so much attention and what makes it maybe special or different than some of the other evolutions of Ethereum?
The London Hardfork, so basically Ethereum hardforks in general are just a set of code changes, upgrades that are dependent on everybody updating their Ethereum software. So like sometimes you can do upgrades and tweaks to stuff in Ethereum and you don't have to upgrade your software, but in this case you do have to. So the London upgrade had a few major EIPs, really one major EIP and a few others that were really interesting. One of them, the main one I should say, is EIP 1559. Which is a new way to do a new fee mechanism for Ethereum. So what happens with EIP 1559? Before, you basically pay your transaction fee to the miner, and you have to it's like an open free market bidding process where you're trying to get your transaction in a certain amount of time based on the fee that you provide the miner. So you give a higher fee, your transaction gets into the block sooner. So that was really inefficient because it was really hard to estimate how much you should give for the amount of time. So to make it better to estimate what fee needs to go in, they changed the mechanism to where now you have to select a few different parameters. Some wallets make it really easy to just go with the defaults, but if you want to be really technical about it, you could select a base fee and then a tip. So the base fee is like what all the miners are taking right now, and it's all the same type of fee, it's all the same amount of fee. And then the tip is if you want it to get in a little bit faster. And then the entire market responds to how many people are participating in the fee market itself. That's how I understand it. It's really a big improvement to the user experience of Ethereum fees. A side effect of this is it also burns Ether when the fee is submitted. And that fee burn helps with a lot of economic stuff I do not understand.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair. I think there's a true or not, there's an understanding that people have that through this, gas will be essentially cheaper per transaction, as per whatever your knowledge on this subject. Is that correct? Will gas be cheaper, or is it just more stable?
It's just more predictable. It's not cheaper. That is something that's been going around. People just started saying gas would be cheaper because of 1559, but that's actually not true. It's not in any of the design documents or EIPs, which are the protocol documents. The thing that it could do, basically the gas could get cheaper because when it's more predictable and people are using the market correctly and pools are acting, in the interest of the users, yes, it could become cheaper, but that wasn't a goal of the EIP. It might just be a happy side effect.
Right.
Hudson, we've had a couple guests on who have kind of broken down a bit of a timeline. We had Anthony Sassano early in the year who just did a really good job of kind of explaining how Ethereum has evolved. And from someone like you who like is, I mentioned OG in the crypto space, but also like very much OG in the Ethereum space. And you've seen the evolution up until this point at a very high level. Can you kind of just talk about, you know, how it has evolved so far, and then also to your understanding where Ethereum is going in the future?
Yes, absolutely. So it's been a wild ride. Early, you know, from 2015 to, I guess, I'd like to talk about this under the frame or the, like, I guess, framing of governance, because I find that really interesting, and how things are decided and how things get put in. So these core developer meetings that I used to be a part of since roughly 2015 or 2016, they decide what upgrades go into Ethereum. So early on, you know, there wasn't like a ton of different clients. There was maybe three clients or 4 clients, like total, and some of them weren't very active. And so it was easier to just jump into a meeting. Vitalik and a few other primary people would kind of tell us the direction we're going, because it was really early and there wasn't a lot of people, and we'd be on our way. And so things moved faster. Over time, more people became involved in the decision-making process, and it's always been a major tenet to have community input and a lot of well thought out discussion when it comes to things like upgrades to Ethereum and upgrades to the EVM and stuff like that. So it's been harder over time to scale this open, decentralized governance process, but I think we're doing a pretty good job of it as much as we can. I'm a big proponent of social governance, meaning I don't want like token voting on chain where, you know, the amount of ether is represented to your weight of the vote. I don't want on-chain voting for proposals, because again, that has some plutocracy issues. I think that the best way that we're doing it is the way we're doing it now, which is kind of a technocracy, where the, you know, all-powerful core devs, to an extent, listen and are altruistic and talk to the community about what they want to happen, and then that gets put in the protocol. So it's not perfect, because there is kind of this semblance of a ruling class, but they're good people, and I think that they need to be like the ones in charge for now. Luckily, there's been a lot of other changes since there's so many different groups now kind of giving their input other than just the Ethereum Foundation. Then it's been interesting collecting all of that feedback from everybody at the same time too. As far as the trajectory for the future, it's looking amazingly bright. There is a lot of work to get the ETH 1.0 and ETH 2.0 teams together to discuss what's called the merge, where we move from proof of work to proof of stake. That's the next big thing now that 1559 is over. As far as timeline for that, we're thinking that could happen as early as Q1 2022. But Ethereum has traditionally never been good at dates. No one really decides when things happen till like they are really close to happening, and we don't like giving hard deadlines for things.
One thing I'm curious about is Ethereum Cat Herders. So that's something I mentioned in the bio you're a co-founder of. What exactly is that?
Ethereum Cat Herders was founded in January 2019, and its purpose was to fill in the gaps of kind of decentralized organizational management and note-taking in the ecosystem. So with these ETH 2.0 meetings and core developer meetings and other important things, we have notes taken after a YouTube recording happens. And that's to help people stay up to date with what's happening in Ethereum protocol development. So the first task was for the Cat Herders to get some grant money and give out $50 or $100, depending on the meeting, and stable coins per meeting to people who would volunteer. From there, we've also been involved in stuff like surveying the community for different contentious topics. We also have done educational content. Pooja, who is the herder-in-chief of the Ethereum Cat Herders, does Peep and Eep. which is where they do a deep dive into the Ethereum improvement proposals that are going to be discussed at core developer meetings. So it's kind of this organizational layer of the protocol layer of Ethereum in a way. They also do some stuff with going to conferences and talking at conferences about educational stuff when it comes to Ethereum and evangelizing. So yeah, we do a variety of things. We're definitely growing. And if you're interested, you can, EthereumCatHerders.com is where you can go. We love volunteers. We have a Discord that's very active if anyone's interested. Is
that all volunteer based, as far as how it all works?
It's all volunteer based. The only paid employee we have is Pooja. And then, of course, we pay out bounties for note taking and other tasks like that.
Awesome. One thing I'm curious about is your thoughts. So you had mentioned kind of what everyone had signed up for, not everyone, but some of the people you knew who were in the Bitcoin space early, you know, kind of how it was evolving was a little different than what they originally thought, perhaps, and that kind of thing. And it just triggered the question in my mind of this thought of maximalism. And because it's something that, you know, we've talked to a few different guests about. Our show, we try to be a little bit agnostic in the sense of, you know, we'll talk about different chains or different projects and that kind of thing. And there are definitely that group of people, but there's also a lot of people who are just so, you know, one chain, like whether it's Ethereum, whether it's Bitcoin, whether it's Cardano, like whatever it is. What are your thoughts in general of just maximalism in the space, knowing that you're somebody who has worked on various projects over the years?
Yeah. Well, as we all know, Ethereum is the one true God. No, I'm just kidding. Maximalism sucks. I hate it. And I think that it is very short-sighted. I think maximalism for just about anything, even outside of crypto, is kind of dumb. So that's the long and short of it. I think that it's also detrimental because people who get introduced to the concepts behind blockchain and cryptocurrency, Bitcoin is sometimes their first stop. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of great people in the Bitcoin community. But if they're unlucky, the people who are exploring might run into a maximalist who says everything else is terrible. Bitcoin's the only thing, you know, it's so usable. And so it's just not always that accurate. So I think maximalism has a lot of negative qualities to it. And Bitcoin Miami was kind of like, in my mind, like the peak of showing that. For people who followed that on Twitter or who went there, it was like so many zealots in the space. Not to say there aren't those people in Ethereum. I think that people generally regard Ethereum and as less maximalist than Bitcoin, but I'm very biased as I am in the middle of the community. And I guess there is some maxis among Ethereum that, you know, need to rein it in a bit. But in general, I think it's just kind of a inevitable thing to have people who are maximalist and zealots in the space.
But then, great point. But on that theme of, you know, in terms of those who are very strong proponents of Ethereum, what are your thoughts on the flip side with some of these, I hate the term Ethereum killer, I think it's a ridiculous term, but, you know, some of these competitor chains perhaps of objectively where you see things are at, because Ethereum has this huge first mover advantage. There's so many people involved, but do you see a future where there are multiple chains kind of interoperability, interacting with each other and that type of thing? Or do you think that Ethereum has become this giant that probably won't be displaced by anyone else?
I absolutely believe in a multi-chain future. I don't think Ethereum is the one chain to rule them all. That would be doing too much. That would, you know, I actually, so like, I'll just skip to like the far future, like something like well beyond what most people talk about. I imagine that blockchain technology becomes so ubiquitous and the way that you can connect and validate each other's nodes so easy that everyone has their own personal blockchain that's connected to an internet of blockchains like a Cosmos, Polygon, etc., that you just allow certain people into. but that are validated by people who wouldn't censor your transactions. So it's kind of weird to think about, but yeah, I think that the far future is definitely multi-blockchain, and even in the near future, we have stuff. The reason, in part, I'm involved in ZCash is because I really believe in the mission, and I really like the community. The mission being having a privacy-preserving cryptocurrency for everybody. And ZCash, I think, is going to play a big role once it starts to add some elements of programmability and moves to proof of stake, which are both things that I feel like at this point are more or less in the timeline. And I think some of the stuff is, it's not about the best technology winning. It's about the technology that gets marketed the best, and it's about the technology that people, just happen to run into and use, and the technology that just gets chosen as some of the winners. It's not always, because like Ethereum might be the best, and or maybe Cardano or maybe Avalanche are the best, but it comes down to marketing, which is really, and I hate that because that's not something that I am natively good at, is marketing. But I think it's the truth that it's not a we build it and they will come type of thing all the time. And just one more point on ZCash. A lot of people kind of, at least in some of the, some people I've talked to have said, well, why are you supporting ZCash? We have Aztec on Ethereum, which is a zk-SNARK style, side L2. And we have the way Tornado Cash to do anonymous cash on Ethereum. And I think it's because in Ethereum, you have to obtain Ether, then convert it using something like Tornado Cash to anonymous crypto. And then it's hard to, there's a big learning curve and it's harder to use. Whereas in ZCash, it's same interface as Bitcoin, as easy as just, shielding a transaction with a button, and under 10 seconds, you're sending a shielded transaction. So I think people discount the number of steps you have to take right now for privacy on Ethereum. And I haven't heard about people really clamoring for a protocol layer 1 privacy solution on Ethereum that would be native to it right now.
You just dove into Zcash in a number of ways. Could you take a step back and just explain what is Zcash anyways, and what are zk-SNARKs?
Sure. So Zcash is a cryptocurrency that was started a few years ago, and it's a fork of Bitcoin, but they've put zk-SNARKs on the cryptocurrency, which means that they've made the cryptocurrency private. The blockchain will show that the Zcash coins are sent to the recipient, but it won't show who the sender and the receiver are, but it will show proof that the coins are the same amount in the network as before. So it's really crazy math. It's way beyond me, but it's really impressive stuff. Zcash has some of the best cryptographers in the space. And Zcash is kind of at a crossroads right now. There are also some of the other things that have recently happened in the last year and a half have been this block reward funding that they've decided to do. So they have a block reward where a portion of the block that gets mined in Zcash goes toward one of three entities: the ZCash Open Major Grants, which I'm a part of, which is a 5-member committee of a grant giving organization for Zcash, or the for-profit Zcash entity Electric Coin Company, or the nonprofit Zcash entity ZCash Foundation. So all three of these groups get a split of part of the block reward for perpetual funding of the ecosystem. The crossroads that I'm kind of referring to is, what do we do next? They're just about to launch Network Upgrade 5, which will bring scalability and some other really cool features to it. But what's the point of scalability when no one's using your chain? Right now, blocks are very empty. So I think we need something to really attract people to the chain, and they're looking at Zcash shielded assets, which are a type of like a ERC20 token, but anonymous, or like an identity token, but anonymous on Zcash. So in ways, it's kind of competing with Ethereum, like having a private privacy element. But there's so many things you can do with it, including like wrapped Bitcoin, wrapped Ethereum, a lot of other things that kind of inch toward the programmability future that I think people want for Zcash.
What about how, I believe it was just last year, if not earlier this year, there was a bit of a crackdown, you could say, on privacy coins, and they were getting delisted from centralized exchanges. Is that, do you think that privacy coins, just by nature of them being all about privacy, will come under more scrutiny and fire from regulators and governments because of, potential concerns around criminal activity or things like that?
Yeah, I believe it will. I think that a lot of people in the ecosystem are preparing for that and are ready for that to different extents. If you look back at the encryption wars in the 90s, when basically the US was going to outlaw encryption in general, and people would smuggle in, encryption code and like wear it on T-shirts to protest and stuff like that. I can see something like that happening in the future, where we're going to really need to like figure out the best way to educate the world on the benefits of privacy, because there are a ton of benefits to privacy. And it's always going to be a double-edged sword, just like the internet and just like every major breakthrough within modern technology. But it's worth it. The way that, you can send and receive value in a way that people don't know what you're sending and receiving is really important for countries that are being cracked down on, regimes and dictatorships, and countries that have very unstable economies and are stealing their money and like out of the bank accounts. Like, we really need privacy. It's one of those, it has to happen. And so I'm just happy that there are good people at Zcash and even some good people in Ethereum who are thinking about these problems really hard.
Hudson, before we kind of head to we always have a 3-question segment that we end every interview with. But before we head there, I want to circle back to Ethereum. And our last couple episodes that we've done have been pretty heavily focused on NFTs. And that has been one of the big stories this year in terms of maybe the gateway drug into getting people into crypto is the attention that NFTs have drawn in. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, is that something last year around this time, were you thinking in your head like that NFTs could have this kind of effect in terms of adoption and that kind of thing? Was that something that was obvious to the Ethereum community? What do you make of the rise of their popularity?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've never been a huge fan of NFTs. There's a few reasons for that. As far as a use case, I think it has done a good job spreading the word about Ethereum. I think that the way NFTs are designed today is not exactly sustainable. Just having an IPFS link embedded in a contract on a picture that you can just copy paste, and people's copyrights can be kind of broken, and you can sell NFTs of other people's work unregulated. That's not good. Although I'm not asking for regulation, but there needs to be a push from the community for different licensing that is compatible with NFTs. I also think that at this point, a lot of the stuff like CryptoPunks having a floor of like $100,000 or something crazy like that, I think that's a lot of wealthy people kind of playing with their money. And that's not to say that everyone who does NFTs is doing that. There are people who are legitimately into it for like the artwork, and that's great. And some people are collectors, and some people are even kind of just trading them, and that's fine too. I think the real utility of NFTs is going to come in the future when there is a proliferation of things like trading card games like Gods Unchained making progress, where I'm on Overwatch and I have like a skin in Overwatch and I want to trade that as a non-fungible asset for something in World of Warcraft. and I can do that across different games, across different worlds. And I think that's where it really lies, is having this cross community impact with things that you actually own and are not controlled by a centralized server.
Another thing I want to ask you about is smart contracts and where you see them going in terms of like regular use. And I went back, I saw, I guess it was kind of a presentation. It wasn't so much an interview, but it was a video that I think it was from about 2017, and you were explaining Ethereum and some of the basics. And one of the examples you were using in the code was a marriage license. And it's one of those things where I forget exactly how you articulated it, but it was something like, we put so much value on this piece of paper that is signed with pen, like that is just, completely rock solid, but people are hesitant about something like a smart contract. But I'm just, this isn't so much a question as just what are your thoughts of smart contracts and how they're going to evolve, and maybe some of the everyday things that today we do differently that you see smart contracts basically impacting or disrupting?
Yeah, I think smart contracts are the biggest innovation in Ethereum, pretty much. Like the Ethereum virtual machine being able to run nearly Turing complete contracts is amazing. I'm still blown away by it, even years after initially reading the white paper. And it's spawned a lot of other blockchains that have adopted smart contract languages, or even just Solidity and Ethereum languages. As far as what they will become in the future and like how they will progress, there's going to be definitely improvements to stuff like the EVM. The EVM is here to stay. It's the core smart contract language tool of Ethereum. And it's being used in other chains now too, because of its network effect. But the thing that I'm most excited about is having interactive smart contracts. So the future of smart contracts in my mind is a drag and drop interface. And surprisingly, like 2015 Ethereum had a drag and drop interface for contracts to test them out when Serpent was still a language. I need to dig it up. It might still be around. It was like Ether blocks or something. But I can think of like a legal contract where you drag and drop different elements of the contract that you want. And then you click a button and it makes the smart contract, and there's the legal document, and it's cryptographically signed, and it's great. And you can think of other elements like that have drag and drop interfaces. So basically, to answer your question, the future of smart contracts is increases in usability as well as features.
Awesome. Hudson, this has been an awesome interview. So much knowledge. It's nice to have somebody who can take complex ideas and just kind of simplify them for our audience. But we like to end every episode of Show Me the Crypto with a little 3-question segment that we call You Had Me at Crypto. Ulf's going to ask you those questions.
All right, Hudson. So the first question here is, who is your favorite person to follow in the crypto space?
That's a really good question. Probably Mike Damaris, because he's just hilarious.
What I'm not familiar with Mike Damaris.
Oh, he is one of the co-founders of Rainbow Wallet, and he is doing like really aggressive recruiting via Twitter and ENS right now. For his company, but he's just a really funny guy. So when I see his tweets, I laugh a lot.
All right. Question number 2. What will the price of Bitcoin be 10 years from now?
I have zero idea.
We all have zero idea. It's more of a fun question. We got a decade to go here.
I'll make a prediction. I'll say that the price of Bitcoin 10 years from now will be $125,000. Okay.
Interesting.
Why 125?
Yeah, it was very specific. Very specific.
I think I like to just throw in random specifics. I think it's going to go up because it's going to find its use as other economies collapse. But it has staying power. I don't like it because it's proof of work. I'm not really for Bitcoin, but I do think it will grow in popularity.
All right. Fair enough. Fair enough. What is the most underrated coin or project in crypto?
Ooh, the most underrated coin. These are good questions. The most underrated coin. Oh, or project, right?
Or project, yeah.
Or project.
People are going to find out later why this is a bias, but I think Flashbots is underrated. I think they are doing groundbreaking stuff for the ecosystem in the research department. They are a research kind of hacker collective that does work under MEV, which is like major extractable value. And it's really interesting stuff and really important for the ecosystem.
Love it. Good job with those questions. Well, thank you so much, Hudson, for taking the time to chat with us on this episode of Show Me the Crypto.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to Show Me the Crypto. Please make sure to subscribe as well as rate and review this podcast.